Today's guest is Sarah Butler. Sarah is a former designer turned food influencer, and her Instagram page has nearly 30,000 followers and is full of great cooking content based around recipes for life. This was a super enjoyable conversation. Sarah is bubbling with personality, and in today's podcast we talk about everything from meal preparation and time management to cooking for beginners and how to get started with cooking. So if you're somebody who falls into the bracket similar to me, where you enjoy nutrition, you enjoy diet, but you're not a great cook, this episode is going to be for you. Also, for those of you who are interested in cooking and are looking for tips, tricks, and ideas for meal preparation and for meal ideas and recipes, then today's podcast has those in abundance. We also talk about how to work and prioritize your nutrition when it comes to leading a busy lifestyle. So Sarah has 2 kids and a very active lifestyle, and how to design your life so that you can prioritize your nutrition based on following some basic principles when it comes to food and food choices. Really enjoyed this conversation. We jump back and forth a lot when it comes to nutrition and cooking and food in general. And I've talked and linked a couple of other podcasts in today's episode when it comes to things like the gut microbiome, the episode with Tim Spector, when it comes to different areas around nutrition and food. I've linked those podcasts as well, and I mention them as we go through today's episode. So without further ado, here is today's very enjoyable conversation, a conversation that flew. We did 50 minutes, and it was one of those, I'm like, how have we done 50 minutes? How is it over already? With busy working mom Sarah Butler on meal preparation, cooking for beginners, and prioritizing your nutrition. Enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm delighted to be joined today with my guest, Sarah Butler. Sarah is a former designer turned food influencer, and her Instagram page with nearly 30,000 followers is full of great cooking content based around recipes for real life. She's also a busy working mom, and her content is designed around her love for teaching people how to cook easy, healthy and tasty food. Her tips and tricks will help even the novice cook feel confident in the kitchen. I can definitely attest to that. I'm really looking forward to talking all things food, cooking and meal prep in today's episode. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Sarah, I want to start with your backstory. Again, I'm a big fan of your Instagram page and I've been following for ages, and I'm definitely your audience when it comes to the novice cook. And like I completely geek out on the nutrition side of food, but combining different foods and what tastes good, not necessarily my strong suit. So before we we will get into that as we go along in terms of advice for people starting cooking and kind of working around a busy lifestyle. But talk about your switch from designer to food influencer and how that came about. I think this is a fascinating story that I'd love for you to explore with us.
Yeah, it's a bit of a roller coaster ride story. So basically, I have a degree in graphic design and digital media, and I was self-employed in my own business for 17 years. So that was going really, really well. And I had actually kind of sidelined into wedding stationery, which was fantastic, and it was so busy and everything was brilliant, booked up 2 years in advance. And then COVID hit, and within one day, the whole lot hit a wall. So you had brides on to you cancelling weddings, changing dates. It was an absolute disaster. So work just stopped. I'm very much a worker. I have to be busy all the time. I can't sit. So that was really, really difficult mentally it probably took me 4 months to kind of get over that I wasn't busy all the time. And there wasn't a thing I could do about it. Look, weddings weren't happening. The numbers were gone. They were just gone. So I didn't have much else to do. Now, I always loved food. We're big foodies. My father's a 4th generation butcher. My mother was always cooking. There's 8 in the house. So we'd be talking about what was for lunch at breakfast and what was for tea at lunch. It was always food. So I was always loving it. And I had actually it was actually my Instagram wedding stationery page. I just put up a picture of a lemon meringue I made, and loads of people were asking me, could we get the recipe? So I did a little video, and it just went from there, and just try and keep it simple. So I got myself to 10,000 followers, and that actually happened really quickly. I think that was within 2 months. And on the night I got 10,000, I got an email from what I thought was Instagram to give me a badge of some sort. So in the excitement of it all, I clicked the link and I just handed them my passwords and was hacked. So yeah, everything within seconds was gone. And because I clicked the link thinking it was Instagram, I handed them everything and they just changed it. So the worst part about that was I couldn't even contact my followers to tell them what had happened. So there wasn't much sleep that night. And I just got up the next morning and said, right, we have to go again. Now, luckily, the designer background in me, I had everything backed up on my videos, on my photographs. But I lost all my lovely followers. And you know yourself, you be on to them every day. So we went again, and the power of the people was just incredible. I think I got 17,000 followers within that first day back. And it just kept going. Thank God, because I don't know what I would have done without my work and without my Instagram page. I don't know what I would have done with myself, but it wasn't an option to give up and give in. You just had to keep going. So it worked out brilliant, and it's going since mighty.
Why do you think, Sarah, I definitely know why it took off on my side based on the content, but from your perspective, why do you think it took off the way it did?
I just kept it very simple. I am not claiming to be a chef. I'm not a chef. I'm not a trained chef. I know what it's like to be busy, working, kids both running around the place, Dermot's working, and having very limited time to get a good, wholesome meal on the table. I'm not for the faffy ingredients that you buy and they're in the press and you'll never use them again. So very relatable, I think, to my audience, and just keeping it simple, good, wholesome food. And none of this crazy crack, and people just related, really. It's as simple as that. They found my recipes really easy to follow, whatever way, I don't know. Again, I'm not a trained cook or shower of cooking, but it just worked, and I went through everything step by step. And I suppose along the steps, I'd explain, you do this because, you do that because, and try adding this, or if you don't have that, you could also add this. It's to give the other option. So, when you're reading a recipe and it's like, oh, I don't have that, so that's out, and as they watch the videos, then they would learn, oh, she did that before, but she didn't have that, so she used something else. If she didn't have cream, she'd use a little milk or whatever. So they remember them little tips along the way. And it's all about just kind of giving people confidence. I think that's a lot of the thing. People are scared of cooking. And then once they do it and they know they can do it, they're off, not a bother on them.
You mentioned there being scared of cooking. I think that's definitely a bracket I would have fallen into. But when it comes to cooking or food in general, Sarah, what's the biggest misconception that you find people have generally when it comes to cooking or food?
That it's difficult and that you need to be a good cook. If you can read and watch, you can cook. You certainly have to have an interest in it. And I think you have to keep it simple. Simplicity. Steam up some potatoes and then just pop them in a pan with a little butter and some fresh herbs, shake of salt and pepper, and you've got your gorgeous little pan-fried potatoes. That's very simple. Anybody can do that. It looks good, it tastes good, but they look at the finished product and go, oh God, that must be really hard to do. So you just have to kind of go back and go back to step one, and then they can see it's actually not that hard to do. You can do the same with maybe some carrots, pop them in with a little bit of honey, a little bit of salt, just little basic stuff. It really goes back to the basics, teaching people the basics, and just don't go too crazy with it. And that's it. But definitely, I think people are afraid, especially of meat. I get a lot of questions about meat and how do I know if the chicken is cooked? Even something as simple as that, things that to me kind of come naturally. And a lot of the time I scratch my head and kind of go, gosh, do people not know this? But I love food. I love to cook. Not everybody does, but they want to learn. So it's just to kind of educate them how to do all these little things, and the little tips, as I said, along the way definitely help them. And also to show them, you cook a chicken breast and you can make 20 different dinners out of that by adding different things, different sauces, your basic sauce, your basic mushroom sauce, but you can leave out the mushrooms and add in some tarragon and you've got a gorgeous sauce there to pour over your chicken. Or you can add some fresh herbs, a squeeze of lemon. All of that just adds that flavour, but you're not going doing any crazy cookery skills. It's just all about the flavour and how you can add that fresh flavour. I only had a message just before I came on. It's a basic lemon loaf. You zest your lemon in and you squeeze your lemon in, and somebody messaged me saying, I don't have a lemon. Can I use the lemon juice? I mean, that is not lemon juice, that one you buy in the bottle. It's not going to taste at any way like a fresh lemon. So I just said, just leave it out and you've got a Madeira cake. She was like, oh yeah, I never thought of that. But she'll know that for again. Or use an orange if you don't have a lemon and you've got a little orange cake. Just to kind of think about it a little bit. And once they have that little bit of an education, they can apply that to so many different things.
Yeah, it's the curse of knowledge, I think, when you have the interest and, you know, and it's being aware of that. But I definitely think that comes across with your content. Like sometimes you put a post that I feel like you're speaking specifically to me, like when it comes to keeping it simple, you know, and I'm like, yeah, I was like,
that's it. But you have to keep it simple because I don't have the time in the day running around with two kids to be faffing around in the kitchen for 2 hours making the tea. You know, you have to just do it quickly. But it's very easy for me because I love it. But I have so many people come back to me saying you've brought the love of food back and you've brought the love of cooking back into my life, and that's so lovely to hear. You know, without it being crazy kind of cooking, you know, you just keep it simple, teaching people how to batch cook. Okay, I'm going to be really busy this week, so what I say to people, I think I've converted a lot of people to do the 2 chickens and the ham on a Sunday. So basically roast up your 2 chickens and again add all the lovely things like your carrots, your onions, your garlic, your lemon, little splash of white wine, pop that in the oven and get your ham on. Don't be buying that packet ham that will last for 3 weeks. God knows what's in it. It's one of my pet peeves is these packaged things that have like shelf lives of a long time and you're going, what is in this? When you can make it at home yourself, get a gorgeous loin of bacon, put it in there for the day and you have ham there for sandwiches, vol au vents, bacon and cabbage, so many different things, quiche, loads of different things. And so many people have done that. And that I find people really love to learn. It's, again, the simple things. Do your food shop. But before you do that, eat so you're not hungry. Never go shopping hungry because you're just going to buy a load of crap that you won't use. And write down what you want to make for the week. You know, write down your 7 dishes. What do I need for each? And then whatever you've got left over, use that veg in a juice or whatever. And then that way at the end of the week, you don't have a load of stuff left in the fridge. Freeze what you can, you know, freeze your fresh herbs, your chili, your bread, ginger, things like that that you may not use. You might buy a thing of ginger and use a tiny portion of it, but you can freeze that and cook it straight from frozen in a stir fry. Just grate that into your stir fry for that gorgeous flavor. The same with lemongrass. And people really love to hear those tips because that way there's no food waste. And I'm all about that. And using your veg in your sandwiches, like grate a carrot into a salad sandwich with some chicken, get some white cabbage. Have you ever had white cabbage in a sandwich with like some roast chicken and mayonnaise? The crunch, it's just gorgeous, but you just don't think of that. You know, when you're using that cabbage that you would have used in your salads, but you're always going to have loads left over, pop it in a sandwich or a roll or a bap and it's fab, you know, so little things like that. I think it's all about the tips and how I can help people, what I've learned along the way, and then that they can use that in their daily life.
Yeah, I think batch cooking, as you mentioned there, and the tips and tricks you've used, like for time management, as you said, you know, busy mum with 2, like there's lots of people listening who either are busy because of family or work or other commitments. What other time management techniques or strategies do you use? Obviously, batch cooking is a big one, but is there anything else that you use even outside of cooking that would potentially facilitate your ability to cook? What's your kind of time management techniques look like, Sarah? Because you're very clearly good with it because of, you know, running the business, the social media, the kids, that whole side of things. What are other time management strategies you use in order to kind of make the best out of everything you're doing when it comes to cooking and food?
I think the best advice I could give anyone would be to be organized from that day that you do your food shop. As I said, I'm going back to that again. Like, write down your seven meals and leave them in the kitchen, because you know yourself, you go in shopping on a Sunday and come Thursday you're going, what else was I going to cook? And you don't, and you forget, and you just end up, you know, throwing something together and it's not nice, and then you're going, oh God, and we spent 300 quid on a food shop and there was only 3 right meals. Whereas if you write down, number 1, get organized with your food shop, write down your ingredients that you need and try and kind of go, okay, I need ginger for the stir fry. What else can I use that ginger in? Or if there's a particular ingredient, like let's just say you're buying mascarpone cheese to make a cheesecake, get that into a curry. You know, you're always going to have a little bit left over, so you can use that in a curry, but have your meals written out and keep them in your kitchen so that you can go, okay, today's Wednesday, and it just makes everybody feel so much better when they're cooking and they're going, that's great, I ticked that off, that's there, all the ingredients are in the fridge, and by the end of the week, you're going to have cooked everything and there's no food waste. So I think the top tip would be to be organized and always make a little bit extra. You know, I'll always make maybe 1 or 2 portions extra so that if Dermot's going to be gone for the day working, I can have something made for him that he can bring it out to the workshop and just reheat it, but he's got a good meal as well. Or even just if you have chicken, make an extra breast of chicken and you have that there for sandwiches the next day. Make up a little salad if you're making salad, bring it with you if you're on the go. that kind of thing. It kind of eliminates then you're going into the shop to get, a bottle of water and a sandwich, and you end up buying a bag of crisps and 2 bars of chocolate and a can of Coke, So just to be organized on that one day that you do your shop, and stick to it if you can. And the physicality of having that list on your fridge or on your worktop, that you can see, okay, that's what's tomorrow. Because you do forget, 3 days later you're going, I can't remember what I planned on cooking. You've always got great intentions going into the supermarket, but you do tend to forget as the week goes on and it's so busy. So that will be the big thing. Just try and be organised with your food shop and put everything away. Wash your fruit and veg. Have that out so you can see it and the kids can see it for a snack. Get all your veg prepped and into your fridge nice and neat. So when you open your fridge, you don't have bags of lettuce. You have them in nice Tupperware containers. Everything's going to last a little bit longer. You can see what you've got to work with, as opposed to going into a fridge that's just, you can't see what's there because everything's piled on top of itself in the plastic wrappers and it's going off because the air is getting at it. So that will be what I find the best thing to do. And you can go there and you're surprised then by the end of the week, we've had all the good meals and there's very little food waste.
That's such great advice. I think making that list is so crucial for people. And you mentioned there about packaged ham being a pet peeve, and I'm definitely going to double back on some other pet peeves that you have, because that's one of mine too, in terms of mine is actually fortified with protein, or Cocoa Pops with protein, or insert crap food, or
no added sugar.
Or,
on top of what's already in there.
Yeah, exactly. Our low nutrient food. I won't use crap food in terms of separating it into good and bad categories, but in terms of low nutrient food, I'm like, just because you add protein doesn't make it good. But I will double back on that. But in terms of food principles, when I think of your content, you've mentioned there nearly like prioritizing your nutrition. You're getting good quality meals. What are some of the food principles you follow yourself when it comes to the cooking element, in terms of the food choices that you make? You've mentioned lots of nutrient choices or food variations there, but what are some of the food principles you follow yourself?
Well, it's funny actually, because it's the one, I don't get any negativity on my page, but I do get a lot of, how do you eat all this food and stay so slim? And I suppose I'm genetically quite slim anyways. I'm also tall, that helps. But there's no reason why I couldn't be overweight if I wasn't eating good food. And the way I explain it to people, it's very simple. Your body needs X amount of vitamins and minerals. I get so much grief because I use the real butter. I get so much grief because I use real cream and I use salt. And people say to me, God, that must be loaded with calories. And I'm like, okay, I've used 50 grams of butter in that casserole, right? There's 7 portions. So you cut that little butter cube into 7 pieces. That's all the butter that's in your dinner. And your body is having the correct fat that it needs. And so as a result, your body's going, okay, I'm happy. I'm fulfilled. That box is ticked. I won't be craving that again, and I'm full. It's a little bit like with the sugar, with the juices. I've started juicing again, and I'm just not craving sugar. I'm not craving sweets, and I'm not here saying that I don't eat bars of chocolate or any of that. I do, but I do find when you eat proper food, another thing is portion control. That's a whole other thing and a huge problem. I don't overeat. I eat slowly. I put my fork and knife down after each mouthful. And it was just the way we were brought up. It was very much like that. I drink water with my dinner, and I just eat slowly. And then you'll find, if you eat slowly, I'm always the last to leave the table. You don't get that full feeling, because I think it takes a little bit of time for your brain to register you're full. So I just eat good food, but I don't overeat it. I eat 3 meals. I try to make my brown bread, as opposed to, of course, I buy bread. But if I can get the time to make a couple of batches of brown bread and freeze them, again, for the kids, that's there. Brown bread and jam, I don't care how much jam is on it. The bread in itself, there's enough goodness in that to counteract having a white slice of bread, instead, where there's not very much nutritional value in that. So that will be my main thing to people. Eat proper food. Get fresh veg. Why would you buy frozen carrots? Why would you do that? Don't leave them out. It's a waste of time. It's just empty. There's nothing good in that. When you can buy your fresh carrots and use your fresh veg, get good meat. Go into your butcher, get him to mince you some mince. Don't be buying the stuff in the packets that stays red. Brian, you buy a pound of mince in the butcher. That's gone brown the next day. You buy a pound of mince in these pre-packaged things and it's red for 2 weeks. So that makes me wonder, what's in that? It doesn't break down as well as fresh mince. So I'm always saying to people, get into your local butcher, get into your local fruit and veg shop, it's not going to be that much more expensive. You'll buy 3 pounds of mince for what, 15 quid? You'll make 4 huge dinners out of that, 4 different dinners, and you can either freeze them or have that mince for them throughout the week. So that's it. It basically boils down to just get good food, eat in portion control, but that portion control thing is a serious, serious problem. Definitely.
It's so much easier, though. I've experienced myself and with people that when you're using nutrient dense foods and using high quality food, portion control is easier if you just slow down. It's those filler foods and highly processed foods where there's, either stuff has been removed from them, fiber's been removed from them, there's been stuff added to them. Like, you're not going to have the same satiation than eating the alternative. You mentioned butter there. Like, we talk pet peeves. My biggest pet peeve is flora and margarine and those other fucking horrible foods.
That are branded, and that's where my graphics comes back into it. Like, I go shopping, I'm in there for an hour because I'm like, look at how well that's packaged and branded. Look at that blue, it says low fat. And then you look at the fat content and you're like, okay, who are you kidding? You're actually, you're not kidding me, but you're kidding lots of other people because you've got it looking so good. And another thing that drives me nuts is these little buns that you buy. They're fairy cakes. They're tiny little things. And it's packaged so well and they look so pretty. Shelf life of 4 months. An E-list the length of my arm. And 220 calories in this little bun, right? And then somebody says to me, sure, I only have one of them a day. I can't figure out how I've got the weight on me. And it's the weight, by the look, it's the gut weight, it's in the stomach. That's where it sits, that horrible stuff that's in them. It just turns straight to fat. And they're going, I can't understand. I only have one of them a day. And you're like, but you're as well off now to go off and eat a load of Mars bars because there's nothing nutritional in it. I bet you were hungry again and craving more sugar because what's in it is making you crave more sugar. You could go home and make them. And there'd be a lot less calories and a lot better stuff in it, and you could probably eat 3 of them.
So true.
So it drives me mad.
Yeah, like I think people understanding that there's definitely, a gut microbiome issue. I had Tim Spector on the podcast. This is his area of expertise, and he was speaking about that, how certain foods are going to have different registrations in terms of the gut microbiome and your ability to store fat, and what you've mentioned there, Sarah. But also, they're so easy to overeat those foods, and as you mentioned, you're going to be hungry again 15, 20 minutes, half an hour later, and that can lead people to overeating. So in terms of overall calories and bringing in overall calories, it's a recipe for, pardon the pun, a recipe for weight gain.
It's just a vicious circle, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to understand that, as you mentioned there, stick with the whole foods as much as possible, avoid, like if I go to my grave and people around me aren't eating margarine, I'll be a little bit happier for it. It's one of those things. I'm like, with all the nutritional education or miseducation we have, but as you mentioned, the branding element, the marketing element is so clever, like in terms of margarine in particular. And I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole, but just take home message for people: stick with your Kerrygold, stick with your real butter, and just portion control, manage it. Don't eat the whole stick, but just be mindful of the calories. Sarah, when it comes to people who struggle with cooking, then when I think of your content, as you mentioned earlier, and I've mentioned it myself, that it's so easy to digest, the tips, the tricks, but a lot of people struggle with cooking, from my experience, and I'm definitely one of these people, that 0 to 1, that getting started with it. How would you recommend people get started with cooking, especially those who either have a little bit of a fear around it or an education issue on how to do it, or what kind of tips or tricks? I know you talk about this in your course, which we'll expand on as well, but how would you recommend people get started with cooking for those who are listening now who don't fully feel confident, but they're like, actually, listening to Sarah, listening to Brian, I'm ready. I want to start cooking and preparing myself foods based on all the tips you've given. What advice would you offer them?
Keep it simple. Get yourself, let's keep a really simple, nice, tasty dinner. Okay, so get yourself some nice chicken breasts. Get a good pan, good tools as well, good knives and all of that, and a good frying pan. Get your chicken on that frying pan and let that cook away. We all know cooking chicken, it's got to be cooked right through, obviously. So with the chicken, once you press down and the juices run clear, you can cut into it if you like, and as long as it's not pink, you're good. I would always, for anybody nervous, say, if you're not 100% on that chicken, once it's browned on both sides for maybe 6 minutes, just pop it in a low heat oven, 100 degrees, cover it in tin foil, and leave it in there while, for 10 minutes, just to be sure. So that's your chicken breast done. Your potatoes or your carbs, whether it be noodles or rice or potatoes, I always steam my potatoes. I find that just they're flourier. You know yourself, hop a knife in. Once it comes out easy, your potatoes are done. And your veg, whether it be your carrots or your broccoli or your peas, get them up. Again, don't overboil them. I tend to steam my veg because you're keeping the nutrients in there. A lot of the people, you kind of wouldn't be sure of cooking veg, and they overcook it or overboil it, and that's a waste of time because all the goodness is gone. So you want to have a little bit of a bite in that. And then just to make a very basic sauce, the jar sauces, that's another story for me. It's like, okay, let's make a really nice tomato sauce. Okay, get yourself some tomatoes, preferably nice little small cherry ones. They're nice and juicy. Get them on a baking tray, little drizzle of olive oil, salt, pepper, throw in a couple of cloves of garlic, into your oven, roast them there for 10 minutes. Once they're soft, take them out and blitz them with the blitzer. Pop that in on top of your chicken. Have that with your spuds or your noodles or your rice and your veg or whatever. But that's like your basic tomato sauce, your basic white sauce. This is a big thing. I found people were amazed. It's very easy to make a basic white sauce. You just get a little bit of butter, melt that, add a tablespoon of flour, mix that up, and then gradually add either some chicken stock with a whisk, whisking it all the time, or if you want a creamier version, add in some warm milk, always warm milk in, mix that up, get your sauce consistency, and to that you can add parsley, fresh oregano, fresh thyme, whatever herbs you like, little salt and pepper, pop that in over your chicken and have that with your carbs and your veg. And to me, that's something that people have really learned from my page is the sauces. That is easy to do, even down to a stir fry. Okay, if that sounds too difficult, cut your chicken up nice and thin. It's going to cook quicker. Get your pan good and hot. You want to seal that. You don't want to pot your chicken into a warm pan or it's just going to sit there and stew. Get your chicken done first, nice and brown. Take that out. I always set that aside and then pop in your peppers, your carrots, cut nice and thin, your baby corns, get them fried up, back in with your chicken, a little shake of soy sauce. If you have some oyster sauce, mix that all up, a little grated ginger. That's it. Add in your rice and you're good to go. Just keep it simple and break it down, I suppose. Break it down. Okay, what's the protein here? What's the veg? What's the carbs? And another thing that people struggle with is the timing. It's like putting a fry on and putting the rashers on first. You don't do that. What's going to take the longest to cook? So always put your spuds on first if you're doing your spuds. Then get onto your meat and set it aside. Don't panic as well. Don't panic. It's not going anywhere. Just set it aside, cover it up, and you can return it back to the pan when you need to. And obviously your veg is always the last thing to go in. And just enjoy it. And just don't go with something crazy first. And check out my IGTV for all of the many, many, many recipes.
Yeah, you've so much on there, and I think it's so helpful for people. And you mentioned there about what to cook first. It's funny you mentioned that. Like, I had to submit some of the recipes for the new book, which is out later in the year, and I had to prep a lot of the recipes because I'm like, which one do I cook first? And I had to experiment with it a little bit just because it's not my area. As I said, I'm not a trained chef, but I geek out on food and nutrition. But when it comes to frequently asked questions, I would think definitely from my side, that would be one I'd be asking you in terms of when it comes to prepping a particular meal. I would ask you, which one should I put on first? But what's one of the most frequently asked questions you get through your page?
How do you do it all? How do you manage it all? And I suppose just to be very organised will be the kind of key with that. And I suppose the more you cook, it's like anything, the more you do, it just comes naturally. You're just doing it without even thinking about it. The food questions I will get a lot will be the ham is a big one, actually. A lot of people kind of are mind boggled at how I can make this gorgeous ham because I put the videos up. It's funny. People love to see meat being carved. It's gas. The minute I put one up,
it's the food porn. Like it's food porn. It really is.
They're sending me back these little emojis of like drooly faces and how do I make mine? Never looks like that. I bake mine. I'm like, no, you want to boil it. You want to soak it overnight and get all that salt out. And then you want to slow cook it with your lovely things. So you don't just put a ham in the water and throw it in the oven. You want to add like a bay leaf, big for the bay leaves. The flavour out of them is just incredible. In anything, in a sauce, in a casserole, in a stew, in your ham. So to my ham pot, I'll have my nice cut of bacon and soak that overnight. And I'll fill it up with water and then bring it to a simmer with an orange. Just throw an orange in, throw a couple of cloves in, whole cloves, and onions, some garlic. Peg them in, don't bother peeling them. Your bay leaf and some brown sugar. Bring it to the boil or simmer, cover it, into your oven, leave it there for the day. And then when you take that out, just take the fat off it, let it cool down in a fridge overnight. And the next day, it's just so gorgeous, full of flavor, all the flavor. And that's the thing, it's to add the flavor. You could cook any of those things I said earlier, but you don't add the flavor, that's not going to be there. So you want to add in them fresh herbs, the gingers, the chilies, the bay leaf, all of them little things give that gorgeous flavor, that real, oh, I want more. It's just so tasty, but you're still satisfied. It's like your body's saying, that was really nice. Now, happy belly. I use it all the time, happy belly, because you're happy and you're not going, I want more. I'm still wanting more. It's like your body's saying, I'm missing something, but by adding all them lovely little things in, it's like, that was really good. I'm terrible the way I talk about food. It's totally an addiction to me. I just love food, and I love to add flavors to it. And I think it makes such a difference, and not to overcook things as well, like the veg. Another thing I did recently, I just said, you cook your root vegetables in boiling water and all the others from cold, okay? So your root vegetables are your carrots and your parsnips, and you want to put them into cold water to cook. By doing that, it kind of slowly boils up, and it allows that carrot to protect the outer cells and maintain all the goodness that's in it. Whereas if you throw that straight into hot water, boiling water, it's not going to have the chance to let those outer cells kind of maintain the goodness. So I put this up anyways, and then you'd have your potatoes, steam them, whatever, in your cold water from cold. But everybody came back going, God, I never knew that. So it's just little things like that, I think. And the more you do it, it just becomes a second nature to you.
Yeah, I can feel your passion for it when you speak on it. But it's true, and it's a little bit of education around it. I think, understanding, like I've always steamed my veg for that reason. As soon as you boil it, you're killing off a lot of that vitamin C, or degrading the vitamin C, which is one of the reasons that you're consuming this, keep your immune system strong, and a whole host of other reasons when you're eating vegetables. We've talked a few things, Sarah, that curse of knowledge is the term we use, that a lot of things that that your audience may not, or I may not, or other people may not, but where you're at now, and as successful as you've been with the page and the amount of content that you're putting out at the minute through IGTV, through the online cookery course, through the podcast, which we'll get into, what's something that now that you wish you had known when you started your kind of cooking journey first? I know you've always been interested in food, but what's something that now that is nearly second nature or obvious to you that you wish you had known when you were starting off this interest and this kind of exploration of passion around cooking in the beginning?
Well, I suppose it was very much a learning curve for me. So you kind of got to learn what dishes to make. So somebody's not going to make a beef bourguignon. They're not going to go out and buy a bottle of wine to pour into a stew. So that's not going to happen. You have to have your relatable content. Now, in fairness, a lot of it was, but even down to the beef stroganoff that has a little bit of sherry and brandy in it. They're like, oh, I don't have sherry and I don't have brandy. Can I use whiskey? I'm like, no, you can't. You have to use the sherry and the brandy. And so what? Like, buy it. You'll have it for again. So I suppose what I've learned is the dishes that people will cook, the stir fries, they go mad for the sweet stuff. I could spend 2 hours doing a video on a really gorgeous dish, easy to do, and then I'll put up a chocolate cake and they're like, I want the recipe. It's like, oh lads, come on come on, you're gonna eat the whole thing on me. But yeah, I suppose just relatable content. But I suppose the page grew based on, I grew my page based on what people wanted. I always asked them, what do you want me to cook, what do you want me to teach you to do? And I suppose the tips and the tricks, definitely they love that. And I suppose things that I wish I knew that people didn't know what I know naturally, if that makes sense. The little things I find get the biggest reaction are the little tips, like you can freeze bread. This was a mind game changer for people. It was like, what? I'm like, yeah, you can freeze bread. Of course you can freeze bread. You just take it out when you need it and let it defrost there away. And, you can freeze herbs. That was a complete game changer for people, because they'd be like, oh, I don't buy fresh herbs because they always go off. And like, just chop them up and put them in a Ziploc bag and you can freeze them and just add them from frozen into your stew or your sauce. But it was a learning curve. It kind of found its own way, I suppose, along the way. So yeah, it kind of just grew itself, and I'm kind of giving the people what they want, I suppose, not doing anything too crazy. The chocolate mousse, that's too difficult. They're like, no, that's going to be too hard, even though it's not. But you've got a split second, yourself, to get some of the tension. So you have to keep it easy where they can go, okay, that doesn't look too hard. I've got everything that she's saying. Let's give it a go. Whereas if I come on with bottles of booze and particular cuts of meat and specific cooking terms kind of scares people away a little bit. So you have to keep it relatable to the audience.
Was listening to your audience and the reason you started the Sarah Butler at Home podcast?
The reason we started that was because my page, I tried to be very professional on it and still come across as Sarah. But I am a lot more crack than I am on my page in real life. But because I'm working with brands, you can't be on your Instagram page like giving out or being yourself 100%, because you have to be professional, because I suppose I do look at it as a business, and I will be quite professional in business anyways. So the podcast just came around to have the crack. And, David's my brother-in-law, he's a radio presenter. So we just said we'd do it for the crack, and people seem to enjoy it. And we just bring up topics that has come up that week, whether it be, what did you cook this week? Or did you have any funny stories? And then we'll just go into random stuff ourselves and have a great old laugh. So it's more that's the real me. That's the real Sarah that I can't really show fully on my page because I have to be more professional. So it's a nice way to get to know who I really am,
Do you enjoy that in a different level? I would imagine that would allow you to definitely explore more of your own personality. I'm just curious personally, do you feel that's definitely the reason I asked that is when I started my TikTok page last year, I felt I got very serious through the podcast and through Instagram. I'm like, I just need something that just throws off a bit of crack.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we could come on with a list of things to talk about and not talk about any of them and just roar laughing about the stupidest stuff, but we're just roaring laughing about them. And I guess it's relatable as well. People have messaged me going, oh my God, that was so funny, that happened to me, or whatever. It is definitely, it blows off the steam and it takes the seriousness off the whole Sarah Butler at Home, that kind of has just blown up so quickly. I'm still kind of trying to catch my breath from the whole thing while still running with it, because it's like this could just, it's happened so quickly and it's all been so fantastic. I still really can't believe it's gone so well. So I'm trying to just keep running with that. But then the podcast is just pure crack, and we have the laughs, and definitely we have a great relationship anyways. We always have. So it's a good way to kind of blow off steam, in that side of things.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's one of the things when we were chatting, it was a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I'm going downloading your podcast, and it wasn't what I expected at all.
And that's it.
In a positive way, in a completely positive way.
Good.
Yeah.
People think we're just going to be talking about food. I'm like, it's not about the food. It's actually very little about food.
That's why I was so intrigued when I saw the description written up on a couple of the episodes. I'm like, right, I'm going to do a dive into this, thinking it was going to be similar to the IGTVs, and I was I was very pleasantly surprised. So I highly recommend people check that out as well, just to kind of go a little bit deeper into it. I want to talk on, you have an online cookery course as well, Sarah. Who's that pitched for? And just because I want to explore a little bit, because I think resources are very important for people. When I talk to people on the podcast, sometimes it's a book, sometimes it's a course, sometimes it's something that's out there that can potentially help people with whatever pain point they have. And, online cookery courses, I think, particularly as of now, I know coming out of the pandemic, people are going back to their normal busy lives. So, different priorities will shift, but you're always going to have people that want to make this a kind of anchor of their life in terms of, right, I want to go with the nutrition route. I want to start preparing healthy meals for me and my family. Talk a little bit about the online cookery course. Who's that for?
That is for anyone like that who really wants to continue the cooking. So basically there's two courses, and the first one, it's a 10 dish course, and this is really for the busy people because it's all about your shop, getting it put away. I show them how to put your lettuce. This is how I do my lettuce. This is how I put that away. This is what I freeze. That's the basic point, is your shop. And then from there we have the 10 dishes. There's marinades in there, so you're basically spending 10 minutes the night before your busy day the next day. Get your chicken in there with all the gorgeous ingredients, your lovely olive oil, your garlic, your herbs, whatever extra ingredients, they're all there. Pop that in the fridge and leave that overnight. And I mean, if you just had that on its own, it's going to be gorgeous, as opposed to just throwing a bit of chicken on the pan. So that's your meal prep done. So it's all about getting your meal prep done the night before in 10 minutes. And it's just simple things like everything's washed. So when you come home that evening, all you need to do is just pan fry or oven bake. If you don't have time to be standing at a pan, the dishes are also you can pop it in the oven while you're getting the kids sorted with their homework. Leave that there, set a timer. Right, that's done. I can be doing something else. There's salads in there. There's how to cook the perfect steak. Little things like, get your steak to room temperature. Always never put a cold steak onto a hot pan. That's going to seize up and it's going to be tough. You've got the marinade there in that overnight, so it's going to be full of flavour. It's going to be easier to slice. It's going to be lovely and juicy. You've got salads then with all the dishes. I always had told them in there, cook a little bit extra. So you've got a little bit of chicken, that lovely marinated chicken left over. You've got the salad stuff from the salads. This is how you make a really nice bap. This is how you make a really nice wrap from them leftovers, so you're not the next day going, what are we having for lunch? Then you've got lovely dessert in there, lovely lemon cheesecake. That is very versatile. You could make that strawberry cheesecake, raspberry cheesecake. But there's 10 dishes that you can ultimately chop and change. You can have, the chicken with the noodles instead of the beef with the noodles. You can have, the steak with the roast potato instead of the wedges, and by the end of the course, and it's all pre-recorded, it's a private Instagram page, so they can pop in and out. And a lot of the courses nowadays, it's like you've got 30 days and then it's gone. You've got unlimited use of this page once you're a member, so you can pop in and out whenever you want and go, I think I'll do that chicken with that salad. Like one of the salads, there's like 7 salad variations in it. You've got potato salad, pesto salad, carrot salad, rice salad, green salads, lovely broccoli, and again, the white cabbage salad. So if you're cooking for 20 people, you just make them in bigger bowls, put them out on your worktop and have a buffet style. You've got all that chicken marinating overnight, throw it on the barbecue or throw it in the oven, leave that out, load of crusty bread, forks and knives, off you go. Like that's what I do when I cook for our family. There's probably 40 of us all together with kids. Everybody always says to me, how did you manage to make all this and you're there, not a bother on you? Because you have it all done. It's all done. Pop it in the fridge. So that's the thing, whether it's for 2 or for 40, that course page is designed around that. And again, to mix and match. And then the summer cookery course is 4 dishes that are kind of really, really nice ones to have. You've got your carbonara, which is renownedly difficult to make because spaghetti carbonara can go gloopy and it can scramble. So I kind of kept that one for a course page. I have a lovely Mediterranean pasta one, gorgeous strawberry cheesecake with the jelly layer on top, and show them how to do the piping of the cream. Just make it, I always say, you eat with your eyes. Put a little garnish parsley on top. Get a nice bowl. You eat with your eyes. Again, that's just me, but I do like to make things look pretty, so I kind of teach people how to do that, even with a salad. It's like put your greens down first and then add the white cabbage, and that's going to bring up, I suppose it's the designer in me, add your colour, get your colourful peppers and your tomatoes, and don't just cut your tomato in half, cut it into a little quarter so it's easy to pick up with the fork, that kind of thing. A little grating of Parmesan on top then, gorgeous. Looks so good, as opposed to just half and a big lump of an onion or a tomato and throwing it with a slice of lettuce. And I also teach them how to make their own dressings. You don't need to buy dressings. Again, you can make a dressing so easily with some olive oil, balsamic vinegar, a little bit of honey, mustard, chilies, shake it up, keep it in your fridge there for a week or 2. Perfect, So that's the courses. It's more of an in-depth, detailed, and they're all exclusive. None of these recipes are going to be on my page. And look, at the end of the day, I am a businesswoman. I'm not going to give away everything for nothing. I've given a lot away for nothing. So this is my way of, while my business is still very, very quiet, it's a way for me to pay the bills. I'm also working on my cookbook, so we're nearly ready with that. So it's all go, but it's great. And a lot of the people that would have done the original cookery course, the 10-meal one, have signed up for the second one. So I can only see that as a good sign,
Yeah, I'm not surprised, I think. And what you mentioned there about giving people the access full time. I remember I signed up to a course and it cost me just under $1,000. It was at $9,000, which was just under €1,000. And I went to log in like 3 months after and I had no access to it. And I had to email. I was like, I spent €1,000 on this course. Yeah. Now I did get back in. They're like, here, we'll set you up another one. But I was like, really? I was on this 3 months ago. So I think it's really important just from a business standpoint. So I think it's for people listening, going down the route with your courses. All my courses are the same as yours, Sarah, lifetime access to them for that reason. You mentioned the cookbook there. Is that what's next for the brand?
Well, that's what the people wanted. It's a lot of hard work. I'm sure you know yourself. But everybody was asking for me from the beginning pretty much for a cookbook because, it's a lot easier to have it in a book as opposed to watching a video when you've got 3 kids running around the kitchen and how many did she say to put in? So we've got this idea and I said, all right, I'm a bit of a jump in the deep end kind of person and worry about things later. I'm actually 100% one of them people. I'm not even a bit of one. So we started the cookbook and it's coming out for Christmas. I've finished with my publishers now. They're sending me the copy for the recipes. They're all ready to go. And because I'm a designer, I can design it myself. So that's the next stage is I just need to get it all together and we're getting a photographer down to do some cover shots and some food photography. And hopefully I will be sending it to print at the end of August and we can pre-order in September and I'll have it in my hand in October. So please God, all going well. It'll work out well and be successful for me.
Yeah, I'm sure that it will. Again, it's just another area that's going to help serve people, as you mentioned, listening to your audience. And I think that's the reason why, definitely from the outside, mixed in with the accessibility of your content is why it's blown up the way that it has in a positive way. Sarah, I'm just curious for one final question, and it might be the book, it might be the courses, it might be something completely different in terms of a lifestyle element, but what is the thing you're most excited about right now? Taking the book out of it, which I know how exciting that whole process is, what's something that's going on for you right now that you're really excited about?
What I'm really excited about, and it's funny, I met a friend earlier and it's Gas. She's actually in the wedding industry as well. And we met up for lunch. Well, we sat on the steps of a place eating a sandwich outside because we can't meet up for lunch these days with kids running around. But as I said to her, I said, Ailish, if this was 2 years ago, my phone would be hopping, your phone would be hopping. I wouldn't have probably had the time to meet you. I would have been 12 hours straight sitting at my computer, stressed out, meeting deadlines. That's what I'm excited about. I'm excited that I have now a work-life balance and more a life balance, really, because my Instagram is doing its thing. My cookery courses, it's all pre-recorded there. So, you'll have people kind of coming in, joining it, paying up for that while I'm off with the kids. So, I literally went into hospital, had the kids, came out the same day and went straight back to work with them. Like everyone knew my kids because they were with me always. They were never in childminders. So it was like tough going for a long, long time. Kind of suppose work became hard and I didn't have the time to enjoy the kids and life and going off for the day with the kids because it was like, well, I can't. No, I'm also a workaholic. That doesn't help because I can't say no. But, you'd have the deadlines with the weddings and this has to go. And if something went missing, don't worry, I will drive to Cork for 3 hours to get it to you. You kind of lose the run because you're in that rat race. Whereas now with the Instagram is me. It is my life. So it's like, oh yeah, we're making pancakes. Oh yeah, we're off at the beach. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, my cookery course is doing its thing. My book is doing its thing. So it's just great to be able to enjoy life now. It has made me able to slow down and enjoy the important stuff. I know that sounds sappy, but it really has. But it did take me a long time to slow down. I'd say, as I said earlier, it took me probably 4 months to kind of go, this is the way this is normal. This is normal. You don't have to be always go, 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 So that's what I'm excited about. And hopefully it will continue to happen, that I won't have to go back crazy on the rat race again.
I love that. Well, you're just reaping the fruits of your labour now. I think a goal definitely was for me several years ago, around the time my daughter was born, was similar, that that rat race is great and you have to put in the grind on the front end, but when you can set up courses, programs, books, things that effectively earn you money while you sleep, it's a good way to set it up, especially when it's around something you're passionate around, something you would do for free, something you love. I think that's the secret. Again, not everybody will get that, but I definitely think it's something that's worth questioning. If you're listening to this podcast, I think, Sarah, you're testament to it, in terms of the lifestyle and making that transition out from designer to food influencer and now doing what you're doing with your business. I think food influencer is just one of the things you do. You're a businesswoman at heart. I can hear that in your voice and the way you speak, and that's why everything is running so well and running so efficiently. So completely kudos to you. That's really inspiring for me and for others and for people listening. Sarah, I've really enjoyed this conversation. As I said, I love your Instagram page. The podcast, I think I'm even a bigger fan of because the cookiness of it and
You're like the real me. more than the cook.
Yeah, it's I learn a lot from the cook, but I enjoy and I laugh from the real you. But
Yeah.
Sarah, for people listening, where's the best place to follow you? Is it on Instagram? Is it through the podcast? Is it a combination of both? Any links you want to give people now, please give that, and I'll link them in the show notes for today's episode.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Brian. And look, thanks. I really, really enjoyed chatting with you. So my Instagram page is Sarah Butler at Home Official. We had to add official after I was hacked. So it's Sarah Butler at Home Official, and the podcast is available on all platforms. It's at Butler Podcast, Butler Butler Podcast. And you'll get me there with David.
And for everybody listening, I will link them in the show notes on briankeenfitness.com and in the description for wherever you're listening to podcasts. Sarah, thank you so much for what you do. Looking forward to checking out the cookbook when it's out. And thank you so much for your time and for your message.
So
and for your, really enjoyed it. I'll catch you again soon.
Thanks so much.
There you have it. Busy working mom Sarah Butler on meal preparation, cooking for beginners, and prioritizing your nutrition. If you are interested in cooking, or if you're interested in recipes, there was just so much in today's episode. I love Sarah's energy as well. She is just bubbling with personality. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you did, be sure to take a screenshot and pop it up on your Instagram stories. You can tag myself and Sarah. So Sarah Butler at Home Official and Brian_Keen_fitness on Instagram. That's all from this week's podcast. Catch you all next Monday.